But let's jump into the first 5 teams on your list, Scott Pianowski. Number 1, San Francisco 49ers. Number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. Number 3, Baltimore Ravens. Number 4, Detroit Lions. Number 5, Miami Dolphins. So, Scott, I throw those 5 teams at you here. I don't think there's a ton of surprises, but maybe which 2 or 3 teams here really stand out to you that you want to flesh out a little?
Yeah, I want to say that I could have gone San Francisco, Philadelphia in either order, and I'm really curious to see what Saquon Barkley has left in the tank. He wasn't too happy about the way the Giants said, "No, we're all set with you. Go wherever you want to go." So he basically takes a very short ride to Philadelphia, and those would be interesting when they match up twice a year. If you want to rank Philadelphia first, I don't have a problem with it. We all know how great the Niners system is. Brock Purdy is good enough. He's surrounded by Shanahan and these wonderful skill talent. I don't think anybody's tuning in today to figure out, hey, the 49ers any good? The Eagles maybe have a little bit more just intrigue because there's been bigger piece changes. And I guess things would really change in San Francisco if they make a trade. I don't think they're going to, but they did draft receivers. So it's a possibility. We can't discount it. The team I want to talk about, Baltimore, there's a lot to talk about with Baltimore, but Detroit. And look, I've lived in the Detroit area for over 20 years now. They just had the NFL draft, a throng of humanity, went well. There's going to be more big events coming to Detroit. It's a renaissance time in Detroit. Red Wings just missed the playoffs. The Tigers have a winning record this year. And we saw last year the Lions coming just a couple of plays away from going to the Super Bowl. You could really argue they should have won that game. Everything kind of went wrong for them in the second half. But what happens usually to teams like that is they get rated. They get rated in free agency. Their coaching staffs get rated. None of that happened. The Lions are bringing the band back together, which is Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round. Sam Laporta's the consensus number 1 tight end on everybody's Yahoo ranks, which are up on them. You can go peruse them. It's next to Laporta. He's got the Kelsey next to him now. 1, 1, 1, 1. We're all recommending Trident. Good backfield. Maybe this is the year Jameson Williams breaks out, and they keep offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, which is, I thought for sure when the season ended, somebody's going to hire this guy, or maybe he didn't find the right fit. Maybe he didn't interview well. I mean, why didn't he get some of these jobs? That's open to speculation. I don't care. I'm just glad that we get to run this back. Now, it's hard to win in the NFL, and the Lions could have another successful year and not get anywhere close to the NFC Championship game. There's a lot of good teams in the NFC, but I can't wait to draft Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round. I can't wait to draft pieces of this backfield. Jared Goff is a good enough quarterback if you're going cheap on quarterback, and a really good quarterback too in Superflex. I don't know how to price Laporta because we're just so used to rookie tight ends not doing much. The guy was fantastic, a little bit touchdown heavy. That makes us nervous. But I mean, I'm going to rank him aggressively. I have a feeling I may not end up with a lot of Laporta shares because I just usually don't go for the vanity tight end. But this is an offense that has everything, to the point that if Jameson Williams pops, it almost feels like a cherry on the top of the sundae. I think this is a great offense, even if they get nothing from Williams, which they pretty much haven't for the last couple of years. Imagine if Jameson Williams becomes the first-round talent that they drafted him to be. I cannot wait to watch Detroit Lions football in 24.
Yeah, I totally agree with basically everything you just said there. I think the interesting thing is Jameson Williams, which is, you're right, it's a great way to say it, that any sort of production from him would be gravy, would be a cherry on top, not just because he hasn't done anything really consistently at this point in his career. So really that he's kind of, I think, has to be viewed as a luxury asset. But, you know, I had a big conversation with my buddy James Coe about Jameson Williams the other day where I was saying that, like, yeah, they're kind of counting on him, right? Because he is the clear-cut second receiver. They didn't draft another receiver. They didn't bring in a veteran to replace Josh Reynolds. I don't imagine the DPJ is really going. Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to push Jameson Williams for snaps, but like they're quote relying on him, and like under no circumstances is he going to rise any higher than 5th in the pecking order. Right? He's never gonna. He's never going to touch the ball more than St. Brown, or touch the ball more than the running backs, or touch the ball more than Sam Laporta. So he is a luxury asset, which I think is going to make him a tough guy to kind of rank out in fantasy. I am curious just about like the ADPs and the price points on these guys. Like, is there anyone, you mentioned Laporta, and I'm kind of with you, where, listen, he's going to, in early best ball drafts, he's a 27th player off the board. That is pretty aggressive. just from an overall standpoint, you're going to have to pass up on a lot of running backs. You're going to have to pass up on some good receiver bets in that range. Some people can go ahead and feel comfortable making the plunge. I think you and I, Scott, maybe are a little more hesitant there. Nothing against Sam Laporta. It's just roster construction. But like these running backs, from an ADP standpoint, are you comfortable with where Jahmyr Gibbs goes? Because at this point, again, in the overall early best ball drafts, he's like the 12th player off the board, whereas Dave Montgomery, we're doing a staff mock draft that we're going to break down with Andy on the next podcast, Scott. At least I will. I got Dave Montgomery in the 7th round, and it feels like we just did that last year where there was this huge gap between these guys, and from a usability standpoint, that was not the case.
I'm so glad you brought that up. When we talk about the better offenses for fantasy, a lot of times the question is, how do I draft into this offense affordably? And as much, I love St. Brown. I will draft shares of him this year. I'm sure of it. I love Laporta. I'm probably not going to have the roster construction that allows me that type of vanity tight end at the ADP. I love Gibbs. He's going at the high end of his range. The two cheapest ways to draft into this offense are Jared Goff. And look, I mean, he's probably got a cap ceiling. Last year is probably the best he could realistically do. He doesn't do anything as a runner. Maybe if their touchdown efficiency just dips a little bit, he could easily just be like QB 15, QB 16. But the great way, the affordable way, and you did it in that mock draft to get into this offense at a reasonable price point is Montgomery, who I don't know that. Now, last year, for about 2/3 of the season, it was like, okay, they're in close. It's Montgomery time. And then later in the year, they accepted that, well, there's no reason why Gibbs can't score some of those touchdowns too. And that became a little bit more balanced as the season went along. And as their trust level maybe went up with Gibbs in those situations. Also, Montgomery had a couple of injuries during the season, which is just common for any running back. But
right,
bottom line, anybody's touchdown projection for David Montgomery has to be like, what, 8.5, 9.5, something like that. They don't, like most teams, they don't want to rely on one running back. They certainly don't expect Gibbs to be any kind of a bell cow. He's going to be somebody who needs to share touches with somebody else. Maybe the price is going to rise in the teeth of draft season, but the idea of getting David Montgomery outside the top 70 as you did, and as the market is allowing right now, I think that's an absolute steal. I want you to put a circle around that, and I want you to gobble up those early shares as they're available.